Today. Oh, can you see me in the camera?
Yep.
Fantastic, because that's not going to happen again.
Nope.
All right. As everyone is here, thank you for showing up where we're talking about adapting your course in the 8 weeks. My name is Professor Tuan. If you do not know me, I teach in the math department along with my co-presenter.
I'm Kristina Hansen. For those of you that don't know me, I am the instructional designer here for CTE. Some of you I've worked with, some of you I've yet to meet. So if you have any questions, Blackboard related or anything, I am over in that office, and you can always book an appointment with me.
I, on the other hand, everywhere. So, as instructor here at Trading College full-time in the math department, I'm also one of the CTE coordinators. My counterpartner in the back right here, Magna, well, we once put together your classes, the courses that you come here, hopefully come in, and then also talk about any classes or courses that we can have for the spring semester. Today, we're going to be talking about how you, if you're interested in looking at your courses and adapting to what is called the 8-week model. 8 weeks, in this case, by research, is nothing different from what we've been doing. If you teach during the summer for all of you, you do teach 8 weeks. However, in some departments and some courses are offered maybe the first half, maybe 5 weeks, and the second half, maybe another 5 weeks. 8 weeks at most institutions is looking at information that students need. So you think about it in this aspect. You're looking at what they need in that course to go to their next level. And when I say level, that'll be the course that they're taking after that. So for me, for example, for mathematics, I'll use an example of a DevEd course. We have students who are in our DevEd classes. For those who do not know what a DevEd course is, it's a course, it's a course that starts off with a 0, and that student, him, she, or her, I just messed that up. I'm trying to be equitable. That student, in this case, placed in it based on their their placement exam. In that DevEd course that they're taking is to give them that preparation to go into their next college level math class. So for example, if they're STEM students, for those who don't know, that means they're taking a calculus base. They're going into calculus sequence. So after that DevEd course, they're going into Math 110, which is college algebra, and then after that, pre-calculus. Now, what I'm saying is that if, in this case, as an 8-week class, we offer the material that that student needs within that DevEd course, and then the next 8 weeks, they'll take their next college level course. Now, 8-week classes for all of you is to give students what they need, but it's also to save some time for those students. Some of our students, in this case, look at 8 weeks and saying, fantastic. And there are others who look at 16 weeks and say, that's too long. I know, redundancy of looking at it. But there's individuals in this case who may want to come into our institution and want to get through their program a little bit faster. So we're talking about not looking at every course to go into a 8-week model. We're looking at how you as instructors, myself as an instructor as well too, what we here in the CTE can help you with. And what we're looking at is what is called backwards design. It's looking at, again, what the student needs to get into the course. And what most researchers said, you're looking at, and I'm going to use these words, fluff. You're taking out all that unnecessary material that they don't need. There's individuals, in this case, I see you shaking your heads, fantastic. We have things within our courses because we needed to stretch it for 16 weeks. And I won't be that person saying I don't do it. I do. We do. We stretch it. You know, one day there's 1 week, one day they come out of the week, they come to the class, and you're like, okay, I got all this time to talk about it, and you're like, okay, we didn't get a chance to finish everything, and you push it to the next week. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at 8 weeks where you're giving them the material that they need. However, hopefully those students are relying and being adults and going home and doing some additional work on their own. Now, for those who've never taken an 8-week course, it is a lot. But it is going to be those individuals, based on some research, they know up front how this class is designed. They know up front what they're expected to do. And it's also up to us as instructors, professors, and educators to let them know what they're expected in the class to do as well, too.
All right. All right, so today Based on, all of you are here because you want to whittle down your courses from 16 to 8 weeks, and we are moving towards that format. So in order to successfully execute that, we need to, there's certain objectives that need to be met, so in this session, as a starting point, we're going to look at some what's frameworks and strategies to employ to successfully condense a course. And successfully condensing it means, the learning goals are still met. However, it is filtered through the essential content. So that's not to say, there's a lot of left out. It's just through, prioritizing content, and we're going to go into how to do that. We're going to demonstrate how to structure a delivery, content delivery for the 8-week format, and we're going to look at some discrepancies that what works in 16 weeks may not work in 8 weeks, and we're going to adjust Fiverr for that. Address the unique needs, especially with hybrid and face-to-face, and as far as accelerated terms go, we're going to have to address how hybrid courses have different requirements. So if one week you are in the classroom and the other week you're online. How in an 8-week course, that's 4 and 4. So how do we, so you only have if let's say if you are a project and collaborative heavy course, then you only have 4 sessions with everybody being physically present. So you need to account for that. And we're going to provide some examples and data that reflect address the various challenges, but mainly talk about the benefit. And you will get all of you attending here today after the workshop. In addition to this presentation, you will get a handout of various examples of common situations and how you would transfer that method of instruction to an 8-week course. So be on the lookout for that. All right, that's your baby.
Why 8 weeks? Well, 8 weeks for most students in this case is not because it is, I hate to do this, fast. It is. It is fast for completion because a lot of our students who are coming in now, we're thinking of this new generation of students who are coming in and saying, oh, 16 weeks, that's old. That's so 2000. In my head, I was like, okay. All right, let's do this again. That's so old. That's so 1990. Now that didn't work either. Okay. That's so old. That is so 18th century. Much better. So in that, and this is exactly how I do in the classroom as well too. I like to have fun. And in that, most students are now, we look at the data that's showing that most of our students who are coming in, and it's just not Triton, it's all institutions. They want to come in, they want something quick, they want something fast, they want to be out there in the workforce, back again. So 16 weeks may not be the ideal for that individual, but we're not saying that we need to get rid of 16 weeks. We're just looking at what are the students that were coming in. Then better retention. Based on our assessment report, we've had a lot of, and for those who don't know, assessment report is a national survey that Triton is given at selected schools 4 year and 2 years to give us information about what our students are doing and what we here at Triton College are doing as well too. In that, we've had students who lose their interest in the class. So 16 weeks may be something that we're like, okay, maybe 16 weeks is not something they want to keep doing. Maybe 8 weeks, better retention. Those students get better understanding of the material because every day of the class or every week of the class is something different. It's in a shorter, compressed time. If you teach over the summer here, Triton, it's really basically the same thing. You're just looking at it in what we're calling 8 weeks. Then is to accommodate most of our students in their busy schedules. How many of you in this case have those students who come to your class, you're so excited, sorry, they're excited, oh, we're excited as well too. But they're so excited, and then 3 weeks into the course, they tell you, I gotta, my job just told me my schedule changed, and I gotta drop your class. We're looking at those individuals who are coming in and saying, let's accommodate their schedules. Before, 16 weeks would say, this is 16 weeks, you gotta take the class, you drop the class, you gotta start all over again. Whereas 8 weeks, if we do it this way, That gives an opportunity for that student, if he, she, or they, so I got it right. If they can't do it in the first 8 weeks, maybe they can do it in the second 8 weeks, but still stay on track with completing their degree. That's what we're looking for 8 weeks. 8 weeks is not just A, completion, B, retention, and C, accommodate the schedule. It's actually all of them together, but looking at the student as a whole. Oh, that's me. Oh. All right. I forget. 8 weeks for all of you, and instead of reading the screen, I won't. But 8 weeks has a lot of great benefits. Now, again, that will be in conjunction with our advisors to talk to the students to give them an idea of how the 8 weeks are performed. As a previous student, not only completing my doctorate, but also during one of my masters, was an 8-week course. I had those online. And I was like, oh, I was so excited. But I was never prepared for it. I'm using me as an example, not a student. But in that preparedness, my instructor said, okay, this is everything that you're going to be doing for this class to get to the next one. Now, as a master or a doctoral student, you're prepared for that. But we also have to think of our students who are, this is undergrad, how they're being prepared for that. That's where we're going to come in and do our advising, or our advisors will come in and advise them and talk to them about what the 8-week course is, how it's structured. Now, in the sense of the structuredness, it is not looking at the material that we as instructors will cover in the classroom. It's looking at 8 weeks. The first week, it's time for you to go, Tuan. There's no coming into class and we're going to read the syllabus, and then after the syllabus is over, answer any questions and send you home, and then you come back the next day. Nope, you come into class and, hey, here's this first assignment I sent to you 3 weeks before the class was starting. Let's talk about what the reading assignment was. And then we have Snoopy sitting in the class. I have no idea. You're not ready on the first day of class, because 8 weeks is starting off being prepared. Benefits, a lot. Downfalls, yes, we may have those students who may not get their emails. We may have students who don't read their email. But again, that's all the advising that will come into the component of signing up for an 8-week course. So within the benefits of an 8-week course, again, lots of students will find different benefits. These are the 4 that we've looked at. But again, look inside yourself and thinking, when you were a student in your undergrad and someone said to you, Tuan, I'm going to provide you with an 8-week class to complete your degree, would you be able to take it? Maybe. What's it like? Well, the instructor is not going to go through the syllabus on the first day, we can tell you that much. Oh, so you mean I have some reading to do? Yeah, you may have an assignment before the class starts. There are institutions that are like that. In fact, Northwestern is a perfect example. Students do not go over the syllabus on the first day. Tuan, how you know that? I'm glad you asked. I went there. We don't go over the syllabus on the first day. You're supposed to come in knowing what the assignment was, and I love my professor, Dr. Capitani, came in. She said, did anyone do the reading? No, after class, she said, get out, because you're already behind. No one was ready. And she said, this is not a class where we have to sit here and wait, where we have 16 weeks to get you up to that point. I know. For those who are thinking I'm crazy, I like to have fun in class. I hate boring classes.
So.
Oh, that didn't work. Okay, I'll
well,
talk
luckily, no, we have it.
Oh, we're back.
I have a backup.
Okay, we're back.
All right. So this is more about the 8-week course in action. So these are all the different institutions that have adopted 8 weeks and that have statistically have quantified net positive. So did you want to talk or?
Well, let's look at it.
So Ivy Tech, almost double, from 8 to 14%. Hybrid and face-to-face especially. So for their online, it wasn't the same. However, knowing these figures, this could be something to look at. And it depends on the course. So if your course has different different projects or different ways of assessment, that could affect it as well. Graduation and transfer rates were improved. This one jumped from 15 to 32% when they went to 8-week courses. Amarillo College went from 74 to 80%, and this was overall success rate. So completion, graduation. Austin Community College, 75% of students completed it with a C or better.
And my colleague, a friend of mine who actually teaches there, she loved it because she saw that students were not only coming to class more, but they retained the information better. Because those individuals, in this case, within that program that they were working in, they only took 2 classes for the first 8 weeks, and then the second 2 classes for the second 8 weeks. Those classes that I'm referring to, I'll use math as an example. They took the first math class they need in the sequence, Math 065. Then they took Math 102. They're retaining the information because we have students in this case, Riley, if you didn't know this, we have students, and I'm using my subject, math. We have, and we want them to continue in their math sequence. However, you'll get a student in this case who'll take the first class, 6 semesters later, now take the second one. Now they forgot everything from the first semester because now they have 5 semesters in between. Now I use that as a wonderful example of the students in mathematics, but most of us probably do the same thing in our other disciplines. You have students who are taking a level 1 class and then take level 2, but because of scheduling or whatever conflicts wherever they have in their lives, they can't take that second class until maybe 3 semesters from now. So they forgot everything in that first semester. 8 weeks gives them an opportunity to retain that information, not only keep it for the 8 weeks that they're in class, but also for the next 8 weeks they're in the next class with you or with someone else. So with my colleague from Austin Community College, she was teaching a literature class. For their institution, they had to take a literature 1 and literature 2. It's required for the students within that program. So they saw that students were not taking it back to back. They were leaving space out. So that's why they designed it where the students can take it within the same semester, complete the information they need for their degree, rather than what they had before, where most institutions will offer a class and they only offer it in the spring. But the next class they need is not offered till the following spring. So now that student that we have here at Triton, we now lost them because now they don't want to wait for the class. That's where the retention is at too. There's also other things in part of retention. We as instructors are what we're doing in the classroom, what materials that we're covering, lots of things. And there's a list of things as instructors we can go through, and we probably all do these things in active learning. But we're saying within the 8 weeks courses, there's a lot of things that, we can probably do a little bit better. Our reports, as I pointed to Shelley, the SUSY report says we could do a lot better in what we're doing here at Triton. Not to say we're bad, because I don't want the vice president to think I'm saying we're bad. We're not bad. We're not bad, Vicky. Not bad. Now I got it. All right. We're not bad. But as instructors, we can do a lot more. And retention in this case is one of the biggest things that was on the report of we're not retaining our students because the material that we're probably going through, some of them think it's a little bit boring or dry, but in 8 weeks, it's compressed. They have no choice but to look at it. But let's continue.
So for the Santa Monica College, success rates increased in overall and lower withdrawal rates for the 8 week courses. So to kind of piggyback on what you just said, what Tuan just said, it's, once in an 8 weeks, it kind of becomes it becomes much harder to avoid, like the content and everything, and the 8 weeks, you don't have that buffer, so if in a 16-week course, if you're meeting twice a week, there's still that buffer. So you've got a course on Monday and Wednesday, and you've got, Tuesday as a buffer, and then you've got, from Thursday all the way to Monday, and you're that's a lot of time for all that new information to kind of leave your head. So in an 8 week course, it's almost like, well, this is basically your, this will become your hyperfixation. This will be your baby for the next 8 weeks. So it's kind of hard to avoid. And the shorter amount of time, it also helps motivate to where they're able to see the finish line a little more instead of having it drawn out like, oh man, it's going to be 3 months, it's going to be 2.5 more months of this, or when it's 8 weeks, it's nice and compact, and then it becomes a lot more manageable to, just power through. And finally, Crafton Hills College. Success rates increased in the accelerated courses compared to traditional ones. So this one, they compared it to their 16-week ones, and they found out that they did have higher success rates. So given we have these 6 institutions with a net positive of when they have gone from 16 to 8 weeks, I think it's safe to say that the 8-week format does have a lot of benefits where students are concerned, and especially when you have flexibility and focus and motivation. What we talked about on the previous slide. It's especially beneficial to adult learners. Who have other things going on. Who have a day job. Who have who are mainly in school for professional development. So.
Questions? Let's not just do the talks. No questions? Okay, let me do like I do in class. No questions?
Now you say this, who has no question, raise your hand.
Actually,
and they still don't raise the thing, so then I ask, so what's the question? Say what? Well, you didn't raise your hand, so what's the question?
Actually, what I'll do too is there's no questions, so no hands, no fingers, no gestures, huh? All right.
All right.
Oh, that's you.
Okay. Yeah. So, we promised you we were going to talk about prioritizing the essentials. So, we will kind of have an overview on, how do we approach this? You've decided, I want my 16-week course I want to whittle it down to 8 weeks, and I'm ready to do this. So, what do? First things first, combining related topics and modules. You look at your content, and you try to find, based on the flow of your course, what are some things that are kind of popping out that are similar, that can be kind of grouped together to teach the same concept. And you cross-reference that to the learning goals, and you have something in there to where, okay, I can reach this learning goal by talking about this concept and this concept, and so if let's say you're talking about you're teaching us psych course, and you're talking about, you've got one unit on the history of it, and you've got another unit on abnormal psychology. So maybe you can kind of synthesize a module, some modules where you talk about how people treated mental disorders in the past and how they are treated now, and kind of combine, go from there. Use that as kind of like an umbrella. Utilizing concise readings and any kind of multimedia. So if a cornerstone for your course is a 2-hour documentary, well, what is it about that 2-hour documentary that you find so riveting, and you pinpoint that and you clip that footage, or several clips of it, and that is what you will present instead of having them watch the entire 2-hour one. So if you're looking to send a certain content, or for them to see a certain part of let's say this multimedia or these readings, try to basically get the main ideas, get the most important part of whatever you're providing from them, and you can even rephrase it, or my favorite, bullet point it, and you when you present it for the 8-week format, you're kind of like weeding out all of that fluff, so that way they can focus on what's right in front of them. They can focus on what is the most important part of what they're reading. So that's 60-page PDF that you have that has, and I'm sure it has a lot of important stuff, maybe we can, take some take some paragraphs, take some excerpts of it, and, in an 8-week course, that would be prioritizing the content. So, it's all about, going through your course and seeing, what is it about this that is the most important? Like, why is this in the module in the first place? So ask yourself, what is it about this? Why is it here? So, like we said, application and synthesis rather than rote memorization. So for example, if you're having students or learners, learning electron configurations and learning all of those, all the oddities and all the similarities and everything with that. And instead of having them memorize all those things, have them look at something before class or present a problem and have them work in groups to solve it and then share their findings. So that way, you still reach several learners, and you get the peer-to-peer interaction, you get the collaborative efforts, and when it's been shown that people do retain more. Actually, rote memorization has one of the least retention rates in terms of actually retaining what you learn. But when people actually interact and do it, and more hands-on application, that one has the greatest retention. So it's something to consider.
If I may, Dr.
Right.
Wilson from San Diego State University stated the following: A, determine what students need. Focus on removing unnecessary information when you design your 8-week course. B, look at the sequence of the course and see if students will be taking the next course that you're designing for, and see what information is important and what's not complex. C, break down or consider breaking down any chunks of big information, just like my colleague stated. And then last but not least, also give them included supportive information on materials that will help the students outside the classroom rather than focusing on inside the classroom. So Dr. Wilson was looking at, in San Diego State University, was saying about 8-week courses, look at all the content that you have for your classes. Being the content experts that we are, look what information is not needed. If you think it is something that will be utilized for your class itself, then have them read it outside the classroom or give them activities. In fact, he said there was a lot of learning activities that you can have your students do that are fun, and most of us do this in our practices anyway. But you can do all these activities outside the classroom, but inside the classroom, he said, only focus on the material they need.
All right, another strategy. So let's say, you perfected your content, you've got everything ready, so how are you going to get your learners on board, the very people you're doing this for? So, one way to, there's quite a few ways to foster engagement. One being self-paced activities, especially if you are teaching an asynchronous course. Have them, do something outside of the classroom, and then apply it, via like a mini presentation or even like role play, group project, any of that. Choices and assignments. This one is huge because instead of I have gotten I'm processing a lot of a lot of proposals for 16-week to 8-week courses, and it's one thing that has been a big concern with some of the faculty I'm working with is, well, how do I squeeze all of these weekly discussions that are basically central to the course, and so what I always tell them is first group them together and then try offer a choice. So out of 2 or 3 questions, have them choose one and then post that discussion, and everybody can see everybody else's choice of question and respond to it. so you can even make it, okay, we have 2 questions, you can post to one, but the one you post on, the one you didn't post on, you have to respond to a student who posted for the other question that you did not choose. If that makes sense. And that way, that student will be exposed to both concepts, both questions, where there'll be, the question that they answered and the question, the discussion question that they're responding to. So, that way, they're exposed to that content where they can, they actually gather knowledge from both without having to overload students with content. Also, independent learning via flipped classroom. For example, the first accelerated course I took in college, it was actually a 3-week one. Purdue had their famous Maymester courses, which started mid-May and ended the first week of June. And this was a 16-week course squeezed into 3 weeks. Not all of them could be like that, but I took a sociology course like that, and it was a lot of when I signed up, and it's like the Thursday before the Monday, I go to class, and there's the email saying, here's these 26 pages of this book, and come in having read those and be ready to discuss them. So, don't be afraid to kind of do a head start before the course starts. Have them do something. You're losing precious time if you're waiting for everybody to meet on day one and, go around tell each other something about themselves. You're wasting precious time. We cannot afford that in an 8-week course. And, so they've already signed up for this. They're already anticipating an intense 8 weeks. So, this will really help you stay on pace, because all it takes is, one little delay and then everything falls behind. So it's critical that, they already come on day one having been exposed to some course content.
So at this time, I would like to take out just 2 minutes of your preciousness. I would like for you at your table to discuss how would you deliver your content within an 8-week course. You have 2 minutes.
You want us to tell you?
At your table, I would like for you to discuss, thank you for being my student. I would like for you to be discussing how would you deliver your content in an 8-week course. You have 2 minutes. Your 2 minutes begin now. Come on, BT, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, 4 or 5 things.
Yeah.
The other students chime in on separate.
All right. Thank you for your 2 minutes.
Each other.
Let's talk
No,
about
one more minute,
now.
please.
No.
So there's 5.
We're going now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, kind hearts, beautiful souls. I would like for you to select one person from your table. I do it in class. We don't have enough time to hear about it. So one person from your table. Who's the person?
I mean, I'll talk.
You talk?
Sure.
Fantastic.
So,
No. I just want to know who's the speaker. I just want to know who's the speaker. Okay, fantastic. Who's the speaker? Who's your speaker? Who's your speaker? You are?
Yes.
Fantastic. Who's
Because
your
I
speaker?
only spoke, so that's.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. In order to be equitable, choose a number between 1 and 100.
10.
10,
87.
87,
77.
70,
77.
77,
100.
100. Fantastic. You go first.
All right. What do you want to know? Come on.
Within the 2 minutes, how will you deliver your contents in your 8-week course?
It will be much faster than that. Asynchronous courses, they are through the LMS. We talked about how in some of my graduate courses, I release the content 2 days early, so the students have 2 additional days, whether they choose to or not. They complete multimodal activities, they watch videos, they listen to audio, they communicate with each other via blogging.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. 77.
All right. So we came up with, first of all, utilizing flipped classroom, and utilizing week 0 to communicate prior to class. That's something you already said. Combining objectives that kind of can be melded and synergized, I guess. And then the idea about offering choices on various assignments where they get 4 or 5 different discussion questions, for example, chime in on one and then respond to a student, like you were saying, for that little one who chimed in on a different one, and then they could collaborate and teach each other about the other, that they're learning more than one thing, but they're focusing more on their primary thing, but then learning from others on their secondary thing maybe.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Still. 87.
We are, so Kelly and I are both relatively new to this game.
Hold on.
I
Did
will-
you just say that you're new?
Relatively.
Well, I am.
Actually, you've been doing teaching in your discipline, correct? Or you just, this is your first semester teaching in your discipline?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're new. Okay,
Thank
I had to get the definition.
It's only my 3rd, but we're very much still, Kelly's already teaching 8 week. We haven't started yet. So we're still trying to, in the early stages of wrapping our head around how 8 week works. What can you get rid of? What can you keep in? Questions on if you have a class that doesn't lead to the next one, how does it work in sequence? What can you put together that makes sense? So we're still in the early stages of kicking around the 8 week idea. And I know in horticulture we've had several discussions, Paul's been involved as well, but trying to figure out what we can do with those. So I'm still very, very early on in the 8 week learning. Everything that I did in my past was all 16 weeks.
Mhm.
There was a lot of rote memorization. So just getting the feet wet into the whole situation, which is why I'm here, trying to figure out how this all works.
So perfectly will be for both of you and everyone in the design of it. You think of the course, it doesn't have to lead into a sequence of it, but you think about what's important in your course that you want your students to take out of it. So if I came into your course, horticulture, and I was like, ooh, I want to learn about plants, and you're like, well, there's a lot. I want to learn about plants. How is plant grow? I don't want to hear no 3-hour, 15-day, ooh, that sounds real bad for a math person. I got you. 3 hours, 19 days, and 17 years from now, you're still talking about this plant growing, and I'm like, I just want to know how this plant grows. 10 minutes, I should know how to put it in the ground, put some water on it, and walk away. Now, I'm just saying. But in the sense that Dr. Wilson was saying, give them what they need to know. So that's where you go back, both of you look at the content of your course, even if it's not a sequence, what's important for them to learn from this class that you would like for them, if ever, and I'm going to use our VP, if ever walk up to our VP and say, you know what, this is what I learned in the class, and she applauds you. You know, like, oh, it's 8 weeks, this is what I learned. That's what you want to look at, what they need from your course. Even if it's not a sequence, like I said. Math is never a sequence, it's always a learning experience. And I'll have individuals say, no, it keeps going. We have people who don't still understand fractions, and they're 900 years old. And we teach it all over again. And then we show them a different way, and it's like, well, I learned it this way. It's still a fraction. But now they learned something that can be taken to the next course. My classes, for example, yeah, there's some, if there was this calculus sequence, that's different. But like Math 102 for all of you liberal arts mathematics, I have students who come into the class, they're getting their degree. What do I want them to take out of this class? How to buy a house. Why? Because they will remember that more than anything because it's real world activity for them. Do they need to know how the logic of mathematics is? No, they won't care. Do they need to know that a Venn diagram can be self-explanatory? No, they don't care. Do they need to know that statistics is used everywhere? No, they don't care. And I'm looking at the VP like, yeah, they don't care. But if I tell them how to buy a house, they will care because that's something they will do in their future. So I'm looking at what they, in fact, when I was at the conference last week, hey, VP, you like this one? I was at the conference and one of the presenters got up and said, what I remember of my liberal arts math class is buying a house. And I'm like, and I'm sitting at the table with the dean, and I was like, oh my God, that's the class I took. But I already do that. I'm looking at what they need. So what I'm saying is for both of you, even if we're all relatively new to our discipline, we know our disciplines. That's why we were hired. But when you're looking at the course and designing it, what do they need? Do they need to read this, what'd you say, 60-page article?
Yeah.
Done.
Well, they exist. I've dealt with them a lot.
Oh, I know. I went to graduate school. I know they do.
Yep.
I instructors do 3 of them in a week. But I'm looking at what's important in this class they need.
It's hard to know when you have never taught it.
Okay.
Like not going from a 16-week to an 8-week. What is the fluff? I don't know. You know, for me, none of it was fluff.
Okay.
And so I'm up there like, next subject. You know, like, I don't know what the fluff is. How do I cut out like parasympathetic, sympathetic, adrenergic, anticholinergic? Like those are all important.
Incorrect.
You know, so like that's where I have a hard time of what can I cut out. I have discussions with Fifi about like
Your classes are already structured for you.
yes, they are.
So that's the essential knowledge right there.
Right.
But let me just ask this, just very blatant.
Please do.
Is it possible, do you think it's possible to cover 23 chapters of content in 8 weeks? That's all different.
So an 8-week class has the same essential amount of hours tied to it. So a student shouldn't expect that I'm going to an 8-week class, it's 8 hours, I'm done. They should expect anywhere from 3 to 5 hours per credit hour.
Right.
So to answer your question, part of that is expected, so that's built in. So explaining to them an 8-week course doesn't mean you've got half the content. It means it's accelerated and you have to know how to be prepared. So you're going to have to read chapters 1 through 3 this weekend. If you're not going to like it, we'll come in Monday. You know, one strategy for something like that I've used in the past is saying to them, you're gonna read these 50 pages. This is the main content I want you to keep your eye out for. Will some students not read it? Yeah. But is my objective to bust them for not reading or to make sure they know the content? So by me setting a path for them, saying these are the things I want you to keep your eye out for, you're kind of helping them to succeed with it.
And I have to say, piggyback on that as well too, and then our VP of Jim George. It is possible based on the class itself. And I say that because when I took a class, we had 3 articles and they were like tons of pages to read. But you're right, my professor told us, here's what I essentially want you to look at when you're reading these articles, because this is what we're going to talk about the most. Granted, it may not have been the word fluff, it was like important, but he said this is essential. So I think when designing an 8-week course, even if you're using the material, you're saying these are the essential components that are what we're going to talk about in the course. However, here's the additional reading to supplement it, to give you more information about it. 8-week courses, for all of you, kind of is the acceleration of it. But students who are going into these particular courses are prepared based on our counselors or advisors and advising this is how the class is going to be structured. It's not going to be a class you go in on the first day. And I'm not joking, I please don't think I'm messing with you when I say we talk about the syllabus on the first day, because I do. But on the first day of class, here we're talking about the syllabus, we're talking about the requirements, we're talking about how the class is going to be. I'm doing my introduction, I'm finding out how my students are, I'm finding their names. Importantly, why are you taking this class? I'd love to hear they told me to. But in that, I'm finding out all this information within the first week of classes. In an 8-week class, I'm sending all this, like you stated, 0 week. I'm sending all this in the 0 week before the class and saying, hey, this is how the class is going to be structured. As your instructor, let me do my introduction, here's my video. Please be prepared to read this before class starts so that when we come in on the first day, you have an understanding. So it is possible, because I have students who don't like to read either. And I create PowerPoint presentations for them. And in their reading, especially for a math class, it's a chapter. And I know, and in my book, it's set up into 8 sections. They're never reading that. I already know that when they come to class and they can't even ask my first question. So I set up PowerPoint presentations saying, here's what I want you to emphasize within these chapter I want you to focus on. So when you come in, you have an understanding of what we're talking about. If that helps. Now, here's our VP.
Okay, to your point, some of that knowledge that you just we have to know, could they learn this? Parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems often really under this so prior to getting into your book. So for me, I would say, if you don't remember the difference between your and sympathetic nervous systems, here's a short video, here's a clip, read these pages. And there's ways to reduce that instead of reading the entire chapter on this. Maybe they only have to read this part of the chapter. And I know you can't pick paragraphs off because there's not continuity. But I think some of that is what should be their prior knowledge of coming into courses like yours, for example. They've had a lot of prereqs coming into your program. It's not the same for anybody else.
Right.
You might be able to tap into their prior knowledge and just find a really quick little video or something that covers that. So they're not reading a whole chapter or 10 pages of a chapter. I get that comes with experience and knowing what the pre-courses to your program cover. But I think that's with experience where this will become easier to use as well.
And another approach is, when you are strapped for time, you can do a more applied method of delivery, using like a real world example. For example, what happens to the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems during an anxiety attack? And kind of that real world application. And then, okay, almost everyone has experienced anxiety at some point in their life. Anxiety attacks are completely different than just a minor one, but it's, what happens to to the nervous system, what happens to the body during that, and once they have that framework, you're able to see like, well, the parasympathetic nervous system, does this, and the sympathetic, experiences this, and then you can go with like elevated heart rate, like breathing, so that way they have that real world application, like a realistic, yeah. So, and, you can do that with like a little infographic, where it's easy to digest. Infographics are a great tool for making a lot of compact information, especially with courses that have a lot of terminology and memorization, like anatomy and physiology, or or any, especially like in healthcare, or even in like chemistry. Having that infographic where there's a visual component and it's easily digestible tidbits, it is very, very helpful.
Yeah, I just have a couple points. I think this raises some interesting questions in general about the aim of what we're doing as educators. I don't know that there's the idea that we can take a content and then compress it and deliver it in the same way, takes enough account of our students as processing that content. I think it's a little bit of the idea that we're just giving them information and now it's condensed, and so they're just getting it in a different format. But more concretely, I think what's really important is the idea of spaced repetition. Like you see something and then you see it again, and you need time off in between there, right? So you sort of circle back around. And I'm interested in what studies, so the students can pass the class. Maybe they're at the end of the class, their outcomes are equivalent or better than 16-week classes, but longer term retention, I'm curious about. So, because I have a background in teaching language, and that's one of the principles in teaching language is spaced repetition. So you see it once, you see it again, you see it again 3 weeks from now, then you see it again 10 years from now, and that's where it really, really locks in. So I mean, especially if this is a professional vocation, you want that long-term retention, because you need that time off. And so that also makes me think, if it is possible to theoretically compress everything by half, to throw it in ChatGPT and reduce it by half, I completely like that idea, because I find I have too much time in 16 weeks, and I want them to have more time off to work on their own. So, my sort of theory of this would be something like, okay, I could cut it by half, sure. I could cut my content by half, and then give them a week off in between. Or do classes where I'm not presenting new content, and they're working on things. So if this is theoretically possible, which in my case it is, I think just because I have a bit more leeway in doing philosophy, then there's not as much content that says strictly defined. But if this is theoretically possible, then I could design my 16-week course a very different way too, where I do think they need that time off to space and write and process and work on it at their own pace. So yeah, that's all my thought on it. I have signed up to teach every classes, and they haven't run, but I don't think I would do anything terribly different. I do think I could compress my syllabus, but it also makes me think I should just approach my 16-week course differently.
Right. I will let this be answered by our VP, both VPs. We'll start with Paul.
Well, I'm glad you brought up processing time, because that's something Tuan and I were discussing a little bit earlier. When you're looking at the assignments that you're giving and you're reducing them for me, you don't we just throw out a number. If you have 50 assignments in your 16-week course, maybe you do 25 in your 8-week course. But the idea is not to worry about the quantity of assignments you're getting in, it's the quality of the assignments you're getting in. And building in processing time for that is okay, right? You want your students to have time to interact with whatever it is that you're asking them to do and actually think about it, not just go, one after the other, sequentially do every assignment that you've got lined up. You do want them to have time to think about it. You do want to give yourself the opportunity to reinforce the outcomes, the main objectives that you've got, and build that in there. So when you're looking at your assignments and thinking, oh, I usually do this, and this is, I count this as 6 hours out of the classroom. If I get rid of that, or if I really figure out what are the 2 of the 4 assignments that are really focused on my outcomes, and I'm just gonna give them those 2 instead of all 4, that's okay, right? You look at the way your assignments are crafted for those 2, but focus on giving them quality interaction with those assignments and giving them processing time. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of times we try and tick off those hours in our heads, and I'm not saying don't pay attention to those. We need to, but build that in.
So 2 points. ACCP states for every credit hour, you're supposed to get 2 hours support from call it homework, whatever you want to call it. When you compress or put into 8 weeks, we're still providing that much work for them to do. But I would also say we have people that teach 1 day a week. You teach on Monday. By the time they come back to the next Monday, how much do they remember? How much you're trying to catch them up to what they did last week? Okay, you spend time with. You're meeting Monday and Wednesday. Okay, there's less time. I want to say, you say process, I say forget. Okay? Or to keep pace with what you're doing. So when you're meeting more frequently, there's less of that time to have to make up for lost time. But again, you are supporting all of that, independent of how you compress that course. You're still doing those 2 hours of support for every quarter of an hour next day. So that doesn't change. But to Paul's point, what are those assignments that you're doing? I mean, you can't write 6 papers in 8 weeks, but could be a well-developed paragraph that you keep adding on to, or write a paragraph about this that would go for a paper. There's a lot of creative ways to think about this, but it's about rethinking what you've always been doing. Okay? But to be honest, it's kind of refreshing to think about how you could assess just this. And I would say it's key. I know you started I keep going back to the learning outcomes they have to get to. That's essentials. You got to get to those essentials.
Yeah, the thought that just comes to mind is, I mean, I understand there's a administrative, just traditional structure of 16 weeks, but if that is problematic and then 8 weeks is too short, why not need it?
8 weeks isn't considered too short. I mean, that is with the test that's been optimal for students with their retention and their learning. And perfectly fits sequentially within the semester system, which that structure works well for administration, right? Faculty, you don't have to pick your courses 4 times a year. You're picking them, for your 2 terms throughout the semester.
Why not just change this 16-week to a 12-week?
Well, it's because it will not fit, yes? So the student, instead of taking 2 classes in a semester, they will be able only to take 1, because semester is still 16 weeks, yes? So then that's one of the things, but also study showed that the difference between 12 and 16, it doesn't change the perception of the student. Students want that 8 week, they want to be in and out. The 12 week, it doesn't matter to them, 12 or 16, they want to 8.
I think I'm thinking like a European here.
They actually stay about 10 weeks when they start to weigh interest in class. So your 12 is beyond that for a time.
But also with the quarter
Then
system.
why have 16-week classes?
No. Why do
many
the attention span of an adult is about 25 minutes. Why do we even have classes that have hours upon hours?
Yeah.
We're not meant to sit there and lecture for 2.5 hours. It has to be active, or else you've lost everybody.
We have 4-year full-time residential students that have a whole different mindset. They're not juggling families and work and everything else that our commuter students are juggling, right? And one more thing though, even a 10-week system, you say, well, why don't we just drop semesters and go to a quarter system? That's almost 8 weeks. A quarter system doesn't diminish the number of courses they're taking. You're taking 4 courses during 16 weeks, or you're taking 4 courses during the semester. When you drop the quarter, when you drop to 8 weeks, you actually get to reduce the course. Same amount of time, but your attention is not divided between 4 courses. It's focused on 2 courses, and there's deeper learning there, but it's a lot easier to focus on that.
Right.
Why do we take summers off? We're not a agrarian society.
No, yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
So there's a lot of things we could change about the educational system. We're starting to tackle this now with this idea.
But you were asking all the right questions, and we're supposed to think about these things, absolutely.
And you're right, George, because Paul is right. I was doing the same thing in our meeting that we just came from over here. So we're looking at these things. Today, probably, I know we took up your time, but this is actually great information for all of us. We're looking at not having or eliminating 16 weeks. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that in our expertise as instructors, we're saying if in this case your department decides they want to move a class into an 8-week structure, we're saying we're here to support that. And there's research that's saying why 8-week courses do help our students, and retaining wise is one of them. That students will focus on 2 classes in the first 8 weeks and then focus on another 2 in the next 8 weeks. In that, all of you, there are some courses that may not be designed in 8 weeks because of how much content that is being covered. So no, I was diminishing what you were saying because I'm not knowing your discipline, but so you're saying your class is already designed in 8 weeks. So your expert designer already looked at it and said, okay, these are the things they need to know in your class. We're looking at courses right now that are 16 weeks already and saying, let's look back, what is called backwards design for all of you, and go back and say, okay, let's start all the way from the back. What do they need to go forward? Because we're already teaching those classes. You're already in 8 weeks. But most of us, in this case, who teach the summer classes are like that. But however, some of us who do that, I know VP is not going to like this. She'll talk to me afterwards. I teach a class, and I am pushing all that material that was taught in the 16-week class in the 8-week class. And in my head, as a student, I'm thinking, I don't need this. And as an instructor, I want to say, nope, get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of this. Those students who are taking that class may not go to another sequence. But what's important, what do they need to know in this class so that when, and I use VP Compo as an example because I had my students do a survey and we walked around. And one of my students said to VP, who writes a paper in the class? And she's like, you are. And they were writing a map in my math class. They were writing a paper. Now, I did that to show them that writing across the curriculum, but it was also essential because that class, in this case, whatever discipline they go in, they have to realize math is going to be written in all their disciplines. So that was my outcome from that. And I know VP wanted to say one more thing, and we have to get out of here. I do apologize for taking up your time.
While that was created by somebody else, we're currently teaching that course. And we don't necessarily create curriculum around chapters of books, or chapter constructed under topics. And while that may have been constructed of chapter 15 is nervous system, you don't have to use those resources. That is your academic freedom and prerogative to use the resources you want. That's the one thing you don't have to come to curriculum about. I want to use this textbook, I want to use these resources. That is your prerogative as a academic to do that. What you have to cover are your student learning outcomes. If you teach dancing to the respiratory system, great, you accomplish that. You can do it how you want. So don't feel like you're confined to said I had to read this chapter. No, they don't. You can figure out how you want to get that accomplished. We can talk about it.
And it is going to take practice. It is going to take practice. And welcome to Triton College.
Thank you.
It is going to take practice because all of us are educators in our discipline, but not teachers in that discipline. And let me define what I'm talking about. Elementary school teachers go to school to become teachers. They went through all the teaching practices, they go through all the learning, they go through every scenario, and then someone realizes they don't want to do it. We as educators at the secondary education levels, it was based on our degree. And I'm going to use me, so I don't think anyone's teasing. I remember coming here, which I taught before, but here I am teaching a math class for the first time, which is Math 85, which is intermediate algebra. I've taught it before, but never at Triton College. So when I came here, my chair was like, oh, fantastic, here's the book, go to class. And I'm like, what is this? What am I supposed to cover? Same thing. She said, this chapter, this chapter, this chapter, this chapter, this chapter. And I'm like, okay. So I did. I covered chapters. And then I realized when I'm looking at the ocean of eyes, this is so boring. So I went back and started changing things. And I used open-ended resources from online and saying, let me bring it in the classroom. But as long as I covered the learning outcomes, no one questioned it. I told my students, they don't even have to buy the book. I said, I will bring the book to class and show you what we're going to look at. But we're going to be working together as a group. So in the end, in the summary of it all, thank you, all of you. This is great for Paul. It's also great for VP Campos. It's also great for me, and then also Kristina. It's great for all of us because our 8-week courses today was to talk about it can be designed. It's just going to take us to go back and look at the content and what content is important. Even if it's not a sequence class, and Nora was teasing about horticulture about putting the seed in the ground and just let you grow. I know this other stuff. But I'm looking at, like for me as a student, coming in and saying, you know what, I'm in this mentality, I want to get back into the workforce. 16 weeks is just like, you're right. And data has shown after 9 weeks, they're gone. In the 10th week, you're like, oh, Tuan, what's this? Tuan, you didn't retain anything. No, because now I'm bored because now this class is taking too long. Yes, ma'am.
Just quick, I think 8-week courses will force us to do more formative than summative assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So, like even if you begin with that, just one paragraph instead of whole paper, but just make sure that it's often, so we're checking the knowledge from class to class, so the formatives will become more important in the 8-week courses.
It's so true. And in that summary for all of you, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I do apologize on behalf of the CTE that we took 15 more minutes of your time, but this was very useful for us. Not only as the CTE, not only for Triton College, but as instructors and educators, because when we're going to this, and Paul is right, we just got out of a meeting and we were talking about this. I'm on the other side thinking, hey, what about this? And I don't even teach those other disciplines, but I'm thinking, what about these individuals about content? So summary, not every class can be 16 weeks, we know that. But we're looking as you as the content experts in those fields. If you want to design an 8-week course, we here at the CTE are here to help you with that. In conclusion, have a wonderful evening for everyone. Please put off the evaluation for us, because even if I talk too much, put it on there anyway. And ending of all my classes, I say the following: stay beautiful, stay kind, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next session.
Here we are. Here we are thinking 15